Hi, good evening. Good evening. I see we already have 130 people, which is wonderful. Welcome. And I'm sure the numbers will go up. And I know I'm Emily Levy Shochat. I am the co-chair of Merkaz Olami. I'm sitting here in Israel. And I know we have people here from around the world, which is exactly what this is intended for. A meeting, a session to learn, to ask, to talk about what's going on in Israel now from a certain perspective, which we will hear in a few minutes from our guest. And why is this so important now? Merkaz Olami, as you most likely know, is what we call the political arm of the Masorti movement worldwide. Political means we're the ones who worry about what's going on in the World Zionist Organization, at Keren Kayemet LiYisrael, at the Jewish Agency, and to make sure that the values that we, as Masorti Jews, share and care about are being fulfilled. That also means that we are able to develop certain educational programs and environmental programs and other kinds of activities that reflect educational programs that reflect who we are and what we are. We've had some very good activities in the past year, couple of years, and we want to do even better in the future. And how will we do that? We'll do that based on what happens at the next World Zionist Congress, which is in November of this year. I'm sure many of you have already heard about it, and you will yet hear more, depending where you are in the world. And there will be elections, there will be results of the elections, and the bottom line is the more votes we get for Merkaz Olami, that's the name of our ballot, the greater our potential impact and influence on what goes on in the World Zionist organizations will increase. So that's why we're reaching out to you. Many of you have already become part of this, and we hope you'll become more and more. And this evening, we're here to share a perspective, not on the World Zionist Congress, but on what's going on in Israel today, which of course interests all of us, and it's complicated. So we're honored to have here tonight the retired Colonel Miri Eisen, who is currently a senior fellow at the International Institute for Counterterrorism at Reichman University in Herzliya. Miri's career, before she got into academia, has given her extensive experience and knowledge in intelligence, security, and diplomacy. And I may add, just the couple of minutes I got to meet her before this session began, also in Menschlichkeit and being a person who cares about people. I can just tell it from the little bit we talk, Miri. Miri served in the Israel Defense Forces for 20 years, during which time she functioned as an intelligence officer of a regional border brigade, as the Syria department head in the Northern Command, as the intelligence officer of the Israel Airborne Division, and as assistant to the Directory of Military Intelligence. I'm just going to stop for a second. There is both French and Spanish translation, which you can get into. If you have a problem, you can write in the chat and Neely will tend to it. Thank you. Excuse me. When Miri moved on and became a full colonel, which is a major accomplishment in the Israeli army, she served as the deputy head of the Combat Intelligence Corps. And I will point out, as the first woman to serve in all the positions she held, she was the first one. I think we can say she's been a serial breaker of glass ceilings. After retiring from the military, Miri served in a number of important public positions: government spokesman during the Second Lebanon War in 2006, international press secretary to Prime Minister Ehud Olmert, including during the important Annapolis Conference in November 2007. Since leaving public service formally, Miri has become a lecturer at Reichman University, Tel Aviv University, and institutions and settings worldwide. She also has time and makes time for volunteerism. She serves on numerous boards, including the Deborah Forum, which is the Women in National Security, of which she is a founding member, Cyberwell, an organization whose mission is to combat online anti-Semitism, the Alma Research Center in Galil, and the Taub Center for Social Policy Studies in Israel, where she is chairwoman of the board. She's a busy woman who continues to make her mark, and Miri takes time to enjoy family life with her husband Gilad and their 3 children, of whom she is very proud. So, as it is said, with no further ado, I will ask Dr. Yizhar Hess to take over, and he will introduce himself. And let's go. We're going to be together for about an hour, and I'm sure we all will find this enlightening and educational. Thank you.
Opening tonight, and without further ado, Colonel Eisen, we are yours.
Wow, Yizhar, that was so easy and quick. So first of all, Erev Tov, good evening. I'm sitting in Israel up north. I'm in the town of Rosh Pina at the moment. I just spent the day kind of traveling along the Israeli-Lebanese border. I'm going to share more about that in a moment. What do I want to do right now? Where would I like to go? I want to try and take you through not the background. This is not going to be a history lesson. We're January 2025. It's January 26th, 2025. And what I want us to try to do is to understand what we can still look at into the future. And to be able to do so, I'm going to both talk about things that are happening today, physically, January 26th, or over the last few weeks. And I'm going to go back and forth in this arena of Israel 2025 and the challenges that we're looking at. Challenge number 1 before we start is that my English is very American English. Emily could add into my bio that I was born in the States and my parents made Aliyah to Israel 54 years ago. So for those listening both into the translations, into French, into Spanish, I'll try and speak slowly and clearly and make it good also for the translators. But I'm going to add in also that I feel very at home. I have been a member of a conservative synagogue when my parents were still in the States as a child in California. And my parents had really, in that sense, the honor or foresight in helping establish 2 different conservative communities in Israel, both in Tel Aviv. And so I've been a strong member of that world my whole life. And I'm very proud of being able to talk to you this evening in Israel and whatever hour it is, wherever you are around the world. If you want to ask questions, write them in the chat. It'll be on the side. And I'm going to use a presentation, both because the lighting on me is a little disturbing as somebody who's in the media right now. You don't want to be looking at me this way the whole time, but also just to really keep me on subject in that sense as we talk about the different challenges that we're facing. And I say that right now because if you can't see the presentation, you don't need to see it. It's not about the presentation. It's just to keep me in a flow, because I'm going to be looking at January 2025 and I'm looking into the future. And when we look at today, as I said, today is January 26th, the Sunday in Israel and wherever you are around the world. And right now there's a focus that all of us are very aware of, which is the hostage release. I'll talk about that in a moment. And I put up here in that sense just the symbols of where we are right now, because the Palestinian Hamas and not Hamas prisoners from Israeli jails that have been let out of jail last week in the first exchange, this week in the second exchange, and perhaps in the weeks to come, they're going out. And for them, the term that they're using that you can see here written here in English, El Aqsa flood, and in Arabic, it's Tufan El Aqsa. And the different prisoners that were let out in the last 24 hours, and this is different from a week ago, all got different headbands that look just like the one which has a Palestinian flag together with the fist itself. And what we're seeing is the symbol for them of resistance. I am going to push back at these terms in a moment. I'm just saying that we are now 478 days into that October 7th attack, into the taking of that enormous amount of hostages, unprecedented. There is nothing like this hostage taking in the world of counterterrorism in the Western world. There has been in places in Africa and in Asia. The 90 hostages that are still there, that include both the hostages mainly that were taken on October 7th and additional Israelis that were taken, both dead and alive, into the Gaza Strip in years past. So where are we today? And the first thing that I want to talk about, because we're in the 6 weeks, the 42 days of what we're calling, what are we calling it? Are we calling it a hostage deal? Are we calling it a ceasefire? Are we calling it the end of the war? Think of the term that we're all using nowadays. Most of you who are not inside Israel, who are not going to be seeing the Israeli projection of this war that I'll be talking about in a moment, if you are overseas, if you are in Central South America, if you are in North America, depending which media outlet you're watching, you may be watching a hostage release, and you also may be watching a ceasefire. And those are two different aspects within this deal that both are hand in hand. And when we talk about them, we're very focused on the South, on everything going on with those 90 hostages not yet released. Until the last days, it was 94. And I give that in the background because as we talk about this right now, this is not the end of the war. And I'm making a statement which I need everybody to understand clearly, that it's January 26th. And at the end of the 42 days of the hostage release, which includes within it an element of a ceasefire, but the focus for Israelis is the release of the hostages, and the focus for the rest of the world is the ceasefire. And that immediately means that just like in everything else that has to do with this war is being viewed in vastly different ways. For those who can't see a little bit of the visuals right now, I don't want to apologize, but I do want to warn that some of the visuals that I use, I don't know you, you don't know me, I don't know what your background is and where you've been for the last 478 days. I imagine that you're all both involved and that you know people in Israel. I'm going to be giving visuals that only have to do with the subject I'm talking about, but you may know sometimes people. And as I say up front, just to be aware of that, because in the weekend, what we had was the release of 4 young women out of 5 who were taken from the Nahal Oz military base on October 7th. And this is a disturbing image, and it's something that I have been saying in the media for the last 24 hours. I want us to remember that when they were taken in their pajamas from the base on that Saturday. They weren't fighting soldiers doing something at that moment when they were taken. They were literally taken in their pajamas. That Hamas on Saturday, and we all saw that yesterday, showed them in uniforms, but these are uniforms that Hamas dressed them in. And I put that there because Shiri Bibas has not yet been let out. There is still one additional observer woman and 2 additional women who have not yet been let out. And one of them is Shiri Bibas, which is, I think, the most famous of the different ones out, both because of her amazing red hair and her 2 children. And when I say hostage release and ceasefire, not end of war, what we're talking about right now and in the Gaza Strip itself is that for Israel, it's all about the hostage release. This is about an exchange, which is a very difficult exchange at the end of a horrific war. But for the rest of the world, let alone for the Gaza Strip and the map of the Gaza Strip, it's not about the hostages. It's about the Palestinian prisoners that are being released. And it's not even about the Palestinian prisoners that are being released. It's about the fact that at this stage in the ceasefire, after the second exchange, part of the agreement was that Israel would allow a lot, I'm talking about tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of Palestinians who were told by Israel to move from the northern Gaza Strip, which in the map would be on the right side. They were told in October of 2023 to move from the northern Gaza Strip to the south of the Gaza Strip. And you have an enormous amount of displaced Palestinians in the Gaza Strip. And for them, it's all about moving back north. And all I've tried to give you right now is a little bit of the mirror image of where you live right now. Because if I saw here people from Argentina or people from France, people from Central South America or from North America, depending which media outlet you're watching, what they've been focused on a lot of them is not on the release of 4 women hostages. No, it's been on the ceasefire, because to get to the release of the hostages, Israel, the Israeli Defense Forces, had to stop the fighting in the Gaza Strip. And when I say stop the fighting, that doesn't mean they move. But an additional portion of it was that the Israeli Defense Forces would move in that central area, which is known as the Netzarim corridor. It's a red line on the map in the middle from the Mediterranean Sea down towards the northwestern part of the Negev, is that the Israeli troops were also supposed to allow, I don't even want to say the word enable, Palestinians from the southern Gaza Strip, in this case it's really the southwest, to go back north again. And that did not happen. And today, after the exchange of yesterday, when the 4 observer soldier women came back, and Israel had said that the Hamas had not fulfilled the conditions that they had decided upon in the release itself, and that the Hamas, were supposed to initially release the civilians. And the term and the oddest thing that's happened in the last 24 hours is that the Gazans in the Gaza Strip all know the name of Arbel Yahud, the young woman, 28-year-old, who was taken on October 7th together with her boyfriend, and she's still being held by them, and that she wasn't released. And they're all saying until Arbel is released, the IDF is not going to open up that corridor. So why did I zoom in and zoom out? Because a ceasefire is not an end of a war. The ceasefire from the Israeli perspective is to get the hostage release. And the ceasefire with the hostage release is something that's supposed to go on for 3 full weeks, for 3 full stages. The first stage is to get back 33. Of the 33, we're supposed to find out who's alive, who's dead. And until now, Hamas is only releasing the names of those that they're transferring the day before. They have not yet said about all of the 33 what their situation is. In the second stage, which is only supposed to be after 42 days, they're supposed to release the other 30 to 35 individuals that mostly are alive or maybe dead. We don't know. Hamas has never told us of the situation of any of the hostages. And in the last stage, up front, Israel has declared 34 of the hostages dead, and it would be to bring back those additional bodies. And at that stage along the way, and that's something that has not yet been negotiated, all of this, as I said, ceasefire, not end of war, stages, that every stage along the way is done between 2 sides that I want to be clear. Neither side talks directly to the other. Most people think, yeah, it's a hostage deal. You sit, you discuss. So I want to say a few things about that, because we're in this process. We're going to be watching it for the next 4 weeks. We've gone through 2 weekends. Has our heart died already in these 2 weekends? And we're supposed to go through 42 days of this, and we're only after what is essentially 8 days out of the 42 for those first 33 hostages. And in these 6 weeks, every single time we are going to see that they only release the names very near to the time that they have to give them out, that we're not going to know until they release the names if the people are alive or dead. And I have to tell you, even then, I don't believe it. Until we actually see the visual, we don't believe it. One of the 4 young women who was returned yesterday, who came back yesterday, who was united with her family yesterday, she was declared told dead in a horrific video by Hamas in November of 2024. They put out a clip and said that Daniela, that they didn't say her name, but they showed a body and said, you, the Israelis, killed her. And so you don't know until they arrive. Are they alive? Are they dead? What is their situation? And add into all of that I haven't shown you a single photo of the Hamas prisoners, the Palestinian Islamic Jihad prisoners, the ones who were arrested in Israel, put on trial, convicted, given jail sentences, sitting in Israeli jails. And just over this last weekend, Israel released 200 such individuals from Israeli jails. And that's going to be happening every single weekend in the upcoming 5 weeks, every single weekend in the description that I gave. And all of this is the devil in the details. So, like who talks to whom? Israel does not talk directly to Hamas. You do this through mediators. Nobody trusts anybody. The mediators may not intend to, but they add in their own aspect. The two main mediators in this agreement, the regional mediators were Egypt and Qatar, with an auspice like an arena of the United States. So I just gave you a lot about that because it's going to keep on going every single time. It's going to break our heart. It's going to break our heart. I can't say it otherwise. It's going to break our heart because we don't know if they're alive or dead. And until now, we've seen 7 live women. So we're happy. And what happens at that stage when it's not a live woman or otherwise? And we need to be aware that that's part of what is negotiated here. It is most definitely devil in the details, very scary. And most people, and especially people who are more involved, and I'm imagining that many of you are very involved, want to know why now? Why did this happen in January 2025? And it's become a hot political potato. But for a moment, I do want to share with you my security analysis as opposed to anything else about what changed since May of 2024, because so many people say this deal could have been done in May of 2024 and we all could have saved so many lives. So first of all, that's always true, okay? The deal could have been perhaps done in May of 2024 and it didn't happen. But I'd like to present the following fact, that in May of 2024, all 3 of the leaders of Hamas that planned and instigated and put together the October 7th attack were alive. And that is Ismail Haniyeh, who was killed at the end of July 2024, Mohammed Deif, who was killed in June 2024, or even in July, and until now, Hamas have not said that he's dead. We declared him dead. And Yahya Sinwar, who was killed in October 2024. That's a really big difference between May of 2024 and between arriving at an agreement in January 2025. These 3 did not agree to it in May 2024. We don't, in that sense, as I say, that's like we have to take that into account. It isn't only what we all think and politics and domestic and Israeli. There's going to be all sorts of different things. All 3 of them were alive at the time, and they are not alive anymore. Add into it that Israel from July of 2024 went on very open, overt offensive against Hezbollah in Lebanon. Hezbollah joined into the Hamas attack from October 8th, 2023. As I said, I'm up north right now. I'll talk a bit more about up north in a moment, but Israel very openly killed Hassan Nasrallah at the end of September 2024, but this was already part of a campaign in which Israel was attacking all of the Hezbollah leadership. We were attacking the Radwan force, which is the ground elite combat Hezbollah force that was very near the border with Israel. We have been exposing the weapons, the capabilities, the underground subterranean capabilities in the different Shiite villages on the other side of the border, that border that today I drove along. And in the aftermath of the killing of Hassan Nasrallah and Israel's both open attack against the leadership and then our ground attack to try and clear out the Radwan and other Hezbollah capabilities in southern Lebanon, the new Secretary General of Hezbollah, Naim Qassem, who you can see, for those who can see now, can see in front of you, agreed at the end of November, exactly 60 days ago, on November 26th, and today is January 26th, to a 60-day ceasefire. And again, this is an agreement, just like Israel, Hamas, and hostage release. The Israel-Hezbollah ceasefire was not done Israel with Hezbollah. It's Israel talks to the Americans, Israel talks to maybe the French, Israel talks to the United Nations interim force in Lebanon that are not Assad. I'm just saying those are places that we have connections with. There was an American US mediator who worked on it, and Israel and Hezbollah agreed on a ceasefire 60 days ago. And those 60 days ended today. So that what you got today in the media on your screens is a combo from 2 different fronts that have been fronts in this war from October 7th and from October 8th, meaning you got the hostage release, and in the after of that, as I said, the focus on the ceasefire in the Gaza Strip and on the Palestinian desire to go back to the north of the Gaza Strip rather than on the hostages themselves. And up north, the ceasefire with Hezbollah, which the 60 days ended today, but the big challenge with that Israel-Hezbollah ceasefire is that what Israel was doing inside Lebanon was in a clear, systematic way trying to destroy the Hezbollah weapons infrastructure. The terrorists and all of that is built into the Shiite villages that are right on the other side of the border. And we've been doing that both in the ground operation, the full-scale one, which started in October. We were doing it from the air. We were doing it in the ground. And those 60 days were over. And at the end of those 60 days, it is the Lebanese army that was supposed to, sorry, whoops, I went back one. The Lebanese army that was supposed to come into that area together with United Nations forces. And what are they supposed to do? They're supposed to make sure that only the Lebanese army has weapons in Lebanon. So all I can say is that every single time we come into another village and into another place, the Israeli Defense Forces have exposed what is, for me, as somebody who has followed this subject for many years, even when you say the number, when you expose the amount of weapons, when you expose the way that they were built into the homes, when you expose the tunnels that went from the home downstairs into the basement, and you had to physically go into the house, go into the children's room, move the bed to get into the tunnel that connects into all of this underground cache of weapons and otherwise, it's really almost inconceivable. I don't think that Israel has exposed everything, and the IDF has said that they need an extension because there is no other force who is going to expose it, and we cannot allow the Lebanese and Hezbollah that are part of the Lebanese to come back into these villages. As I drove along today, I drove from community to community. And you go in all of these different communities on the Israeli northern border, and none of them have come back. Why have they not come back into Shtula or into Matat, into Sasa or into Malkia or into Dovev or into Misgav-Am, or for that matter, into Kiryat Shmone? They can't go back because it is very difficult to say that on the other side of the border, they don't have capabilities in the way that they were attacking us before. Very challenging situation. And if I add the last thing that changed since May 2024, and it's not the only thing, and I'm preempting the question that everybody always likes to ask me, is that the last but not least is that in the inauguration last Monday, today is Sunday, in the United States, when President Trump was inaugurated at Capitol into the new thing, that is an additional change. So look at all the changes since May. The killing, elimination of the top Hamas leaders, of the top Hezbollah leaders, of the Hezbollah capabilities, of Hezbollah suing for a ceasefire. And after all of that, the new administration, all of things are things that changed, and then you get to the hostage release of January. So that I'm one of those that does not think that it could have been done in May and we were just and again, this isn't about my supporting or not supporting the Israeli government. I think that things changed and now it could be done. Having said that, it doesn't make any of us feel better. Why does it not make any of us feel better? The reason it doesn't make any of us feel better is because we're still in a multi-front war. We have ceasefires right now on the front with Hezbollah, Lebanon, ceasefire, and again, how much that they hold on the front with Hamas in the Gaza Strip. And I have to tell you that when I go Gaza Strip, ceasefire, and I don't know how long that's going to last, but you keep on going and go, but what's happening right now in Judea and Samaria? There's a whole front that's happening there that's going even higher. Both Israeli actions against Hamas and Islamic Jihad and other terror elements in Jenin, and today near Balata, which is near Nablus. And there's been in Tulkarm, these are different cities in Judea and Samaria. There's everything that's been going on for so many from October 8th against Hezbollah, when Hezbollah started to fire into Israel, that's a full-scale front that right now is in a ceasefire. You want to make sure that you prevent them rebuilding that capability. The good old Houthis that make everybody laugh. It doesn't make me laugh. I could explain afterwards why. The Houthis may not be our main challenge, but the Houthis have fired in the last 478 days, 330 projectiles at Israel. That's almost every day. And it's projectiles that include both UAVs, different types of drones, ballistic missiles, and that's from Yemen. You have direct Iranian attacks against Israel in April and in October of 2024, and it's not like they have declared that everything is over. You had direct drone, UAV, Iraqi Shiite attacks against Israel that killed Israeli soldiers up on the Golan Heights, amongst others, meaning we have all of these multi-fronts. None of them, as I said, have ended. And into all of that, you have both the aftermath of Hezbollah. What will Hassan Nasrallah do? What will Khamenei, the supreme leader of Iran, still do when it comes to Iran? And then in October of 2024, we had the killing of Yahya Sinwar. And that's a front that I'll be talking about with you, perhaps also afterwards in the questions, because it has to do with the front that has come into every single one of your homes. Because Yahya Sinwar, and I'm going to highlight for a moment if I can get the, I'm on one of those days where nothing is going to work the way I want it, but hey, we're going to try, okay, that if I'm, okay, I'm going to, just for a moment, okay, Yahya Sinwar that you can see right here, on the left side, as I highlight him for the moment, Yahya Sinwar has become the poster boy for the term that we call resistance. And I have seen it as of now being sold as t-shirts in the United States, in Central and South America. Today there was a demonstration in Ireland, and you saw in Ireland today flags of Hezbollah and of Hamas in the main street of Dublin, and the poster kid is Yahya Sinwar as the symbol of resistance. And these are things we need to be aware of and of their implication of what they can do to us in the future. On December 8th, Bashar al-Assad fled to Moscow. The new Syria, with the new leader for the meantime, the man you can see, for those who can see now, Ahmed Shara, formerly known as Abu Muhammad al-Julani. And again, these are enormous changes in this multi-front war. And here I am on the Israeli-Lebanese border, not far from the Israeli-Syrian border. And that means that you know Israel, and when you drive, you're never that far, not from the Gaza Strip, not from Judea and Samaria. So yes, Yemen is far away, and Iraq is far away, and Iran is far away. But all of these multi-front wars, none of them are over. I hate to be the one, as I'd say, to emphasize that. And in January 2025, I want to focus a bit more, and then I'm going to put it over for questions. And Yishal, tell me at any stage if you want me to stop and for questions as I go along there. Because the term that I think we need
a few more minutes and then we'll open.
Okay. That I want to emphasize, because I gave you in that sense a description both of some of the elements as we went on, but here I want to focus for a moment on the challenges that we have right now, where we all looked on certainly the last 2 weekends in what I said, hostage release as opposed to ceasefire. And I want to add in the element of Hamas and what a terror army is. And it's everything I say about Hamas is also true of Hezbollah. And as I said, we're in ceasefires with both of them. We're not at the end of the war, and we don't yet know where that's going to go. What's a terror army? So when you look at the photographs themselves and what we've all been exposed to so extensively over the last both 24 hours and then before that, terror army, they wear uniform when they want. Everybody listen to it, okay? Terror army, meaning they can be built very military. They can put together ideas which are both of a brigade and a battalion and a platoon, that they do actions that are done in groups. They wear uniforms sometimes. What the terror army Hamas did is in their attack on October 7th, some of them wore uniforms, most of them did not. And from the moment that they go back into the Gaza Strip with the hostages, there went the uniforms. Everybody looks like civilians. That's a terror army. The terror army tries to show itself as being something very focused. And this photograph, which is from last week at the release of the 3 young women, 3 civilians, and all of you would have seen that's the in the middle are the Red Cross vehicles that where the transfer was. And when we saw it, we all said, wow, look at how Hamas, the terror army, is the one that's ruling and can bring everybody out. And I just want to focus on the fact that in the zoom out, you see that there are, I mean, you could count afterwards, okay? But I would say that there are around 500 people there, okay? That's just like if you look from the top. But when you zoom in, it looks like very crowded. Zoom out, it does not look crowded. And that aspect of the visuals, the media effects are something that the terror army uses, especially and as strongly as possible. And that means that when they let out the hostages in November of 2023, they show themselves in uniform. They want to show themselves in control. They want to show all of the different things that you can see in that sense. That's part of what they show. It's there to impact every single one of us. That's exactly what the terror army impact is. It wants to impact that. It very much wants to keep that as strong as possible. And the way that they built the attack in October of 2020, of 2023 is a terror army assault, because what they did is they attacked they had over 60 different, what I would call sub-military units, some in uniform, some not, with all different types of arms that attacked into Israel with the specific aim of the term terrorizing, meaning they wanted to scare us. In terrorizing, it is enough to scare us. They're supposed to make us act differently. They're supposed to incapacitate our capability to do anything, incapacitate. I didn't say that word correctly. And in that sense, that was the attack of October 7th. But what they built into the attack itself is the term that I'm going to call defense. I'm going to go across that from, because I'm going to skip for a moment, is that what Hamas wanted to achieve in that sense was the possibility of defense, meaning they came in, they attacked, can I say they just scorched ground terrorism, and then they go back into the Gaza Strip. And this is similar in that sense. Hezbollah inside Lebanon, they're part of Lebanon. Hamas is part of the Gaza Strip, and you go back in and you build tiers of defense that are built on purpose, decades of preparation to bring in any kind of military. And the defense is built in that subterranean infrastructure that took dozens of years to build, building the terror army into the urban terrain, taking the hostages to be able to both have a bargaining chip and defense, using international organizations, and all of the time sending out the challenging messages. And I put that all out there for us right now because we're all living within that right now, and it isn't over. And I hate the fact that I'm the one who always is like the doomsday prophetess in that sense. So I don't mean it always to be in its own way, because what Israel did was very effective against the terror army part, meaning more about the military capabilities. And it's very limited in your capability when you attack their military capabilities because of their defenses. The challenges that you have are in the way that you impact both the media, the information warfare, the narrative, which is the one where we have been doing the most poorly. So I've stated out an enormous amount of information at this stage along the way. I'll stop and I'll try and address questions. Ishal, can you help me with the questions? Because I can't see them.
Yeah.
Yes,
I'll help
Nili
you.
will be the one to help with that. Nili, please.
So, Miri, first of all, thank you very much. We're going to start with a few questions about the hostages. First of all, the ceremony that Hamas had yesterday with our 4 soldiers, was it? Many in Israel said that it showed how strong our soldiers are, but many have also said that it only shows how strong the Hamas still is. Where's the truth? What did it show?
To add
Everybody
on it,
wanted
Miri,
to
with your permission, I'd like to add the condition of the soldiers. We saw so far that the soldiers that were released, they looked okay, and they weren't. They didn't feel that they are hungry, whatever. It's as if Hamas knew what they are doing. Isn't it weird?
So I'm going to answer both of you, and I want you all to breathe in deep. Everybody wants a nice, happily ever after. Can I be clear? This is terrorism. They took hostages. The fact is how that they bring them out dressed in uniform is the most propaganda in the terms themselves of that sort of thing. It's not devious at all. By the way, they also call Arbel Yahud. They've already said that she's a soldier. Okay, they talk about her as a soldier. She's 28 years old. She's a soldier in the IDF. And so I want to take it to both sides in that sense to what Neely asked and Yishal, what you added on in, but I need everybody to breathe in. It's as if, what do you want the terrorists to be? They're very adept at what they're doing. And what they're doing is they are trying to delegitimize every single one of us and legitimize themselves, dehumanize every single one of us and humanize themselves. And when it comes to their own domestic
Okay, I think she froze for a second. Let's hope that she returns.
He's in Rosh Pina in the north.
I'm writing to her, 1 second.
So let's give Miri a second or two. Maybe her internet just broke. We'll give her a minute or two.
Izao, maybe you'll want to start concluding and then we'll get back to the answer.
We are soon to be concluding. We have a few minutes, and hopefully we will be able to have Miri again with us. I want to share with you how unique it is that in the intelligence services of the State of Israel, we have a few bright and high-ranked officers that happen to be women, which is not an easy thing in an army that its majority of personnel is men fighting in the fields. And Miri is a champion for many years for being not only the voice, but also leading the very sophisticated intelligence services in various aspects of the IDF. And when she served with Prime Minister Olmert, she got a chance to be exposed to the international media as well. Today, we were able to hear, Miri, you are with us. I'm talking about you, but if you are back with us, so we can go back to the questions.
The co-host, 1 second, 1 second.
Just a second. Okay, Miri, you can there you go.
Okay, I'm going to apologize for the Wi-Fi wherever I am and hope that it works a bit better in that sense. So I apologize for being cut off before. I don't think I was focused in that sense in the answer that I was giving before. Because essentially what you're trying to say, so did Hamas win? Or at least that's kind of the way that I heard the question. It's like, in presenting the hostages this way, and did they actually treat them well? Is how? Of course they dressed them up. They dressed them up as soldiers. Could there be something more horrific? They took them in pajamas from the base, and in their release, they dressed them up as soldiers. Do they look in that sense? They were underground. The fact that the women themselves, and here we're talking about 7 women, both these 4 and the other 3 that were released last week, who are young women who were in relatively good condition before. I mean, you saw, Emily, that so that the hostage is an asset.
Oh, well. So we have problems of internet in northern Israel. It happens. Since we are almost at the time where we should end, so I think that we would end. Unfortunately, a few minutes before time, I want to thank Colonel Eisen for her insights, and I'm sure that I'm representing on that, all of us here in this Zoom, and to remind us all that we are now in a battle over Israel's future, and it has to do with our ability to win this war in the south and in the north, as well as making sure that Israel, as a Jewish and democratic state, as a democratic and Jewish state, will remain as such. And on that, we should all be working together towards the coming elections to the World Zionist Congress. And Miri, you just joined us. We are concluding, and we would like to thank you for the most important insights that you shared with us. It was fascinating, and we couldn't ask for more. So באמת, תודה רבה.
תודה רבה ולילה טוב לכולם.
And לילה טוב, everyone, and we are looking forward to continuing the dialogue. להתראות.
להתראות.